Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that sounds almost unbelievable, but sometimes the quietest people end up changing the loudest lives. This is the story of a billionaire's daughter that no one in the world could handle, until a single dad did the impossible. In the center of the city stood one of the largest tech companies in the country, owned by a man everyone knew, powerful, feared, respected, and unbelievably rich. His name was Victor Hale. People said he built his billion-dollar empire from nothing but intelligence and cold decisions. Investors admired him, competitors feared him, and employees walked on eggshells around him. But the one thing Victor Hale could never control was his daughter. Her name was Arya. Arya Hale was only 9 years old, but every nanny in the city knew her name for the wrong reasons. She had gone through 12 nannies in 1 year. Teachers quit, tutors lasted days, assistants begged to be transferred. No one could handle her temper, her silence, and the strange wall she built around herself. She didn't scream much. She didn't cry either. She simply refused to cooperate with anyone. If a nanny tried to talk to her, she ignored them. If a tutor tried to teach her, she stared out the window. If someone tried to discipline her, she calmly destroyed whatever was around her. The truth was, Arya wasn't just difficult, she was hurting. 2 years earlier, her mother had passed away suddenly. After that day, the mansion became quieter and colder. Victor buried himself in work, and Arya buried herself in anger, and no amount of money could fix that. One afternoon, Victor sat in his massive office, while another nanny stood in front of him, shaking. "I'm sorry, sir. I quit." Victor rubbed his forehead. "You've only been here 3 days. "Yes, sir. And your daughter locked me outside in the rain and told the security guard not to open the door." Victor sighed. "Fine, you'll still be paid." When she left, his assistant slowly stepped forward. "Sir, at this rate, we may need to consider a boarding school." Victor looked up sharply. "No?" His voice was firm. "She's not being sent away." But the truth was, Victor had no idea what to do. That same evening, across town in a small apartment, a man named Daniel Carter was helping his 5-year-old son with homework. Daniel wasn't rich, not even close. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at Victor Hale's company headquarters, fixing lights, repairing elevators, dealing with whatever problems appeared during the day. His son, Leo, sat at the small kitchen table swinging his legs. "Dad, is 5 plus 7 12? Daniel smiled. "You tell me." Leo counted on his fingers very seriously. "Yes," Daniel laughed softly. "Correct." Life wasn't easy for Daniel. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after an illness. Since then, it had just been the two of them. Money was tight. Sleep was rare, but their apartment was always filled with warmth. That next morning, Daniel arrived early to work like he always did. What he didn't know was that his life was about to collide with the most powerful family in the city. That afternoon, a major issue happened at the Hale mansion. The heating system suddenly failed in the middle of winter. Normally, a repair company would be called, but Victor had an important meeting at home with international investors that evening. They needed the problem fixed immediately, so the company sent their most reliable maintenance supervisor. Daniel. When Daniel's old pickup truck rolled through the massive iron gates of the Hale estate, he almost turned around. The mansion looked like a palace. Security guards checked his ID 3 times before letting him in. Inside, the house manager rushed toward him. "Finally, the system is in the basement. Please hurry." Daniel nodded and followed. As he worked on the system, he heard something upstairs. A loud crash. Then another. The house manager sighed. "That would be Miss Arya." Daniel kept tightening a bolt. "Rough day." The manager gave a tired laugh. Every day, a few minutes later, another crash echoed through the house. Daniel wiped his hands. "I'll be right back. Need to check a valve upstairs." The manager nodded absent-mindedly. When Daniel reached the hallway upstairs, he saw something unexpected. A young girl sitting on the floor surrounded by broken picture frames. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at them. Daniel realized immediately who she was, Arya Hale. He also noticed something no one else seemed to notice. She looked lonely. Daniel didn't approach right away. He simply leaned against the wall and said casually, "Those frames didn't stand a chance." Arya looked up sharply. Usually adults rushed in yelling or lecturing. This man didn't. He just stood there. "Are you going to tell on me?" she asked coldly. Daniel shrugged. "Depends. Should I?" She studied him. "Everyone tells on me." Daniel walked over slowly and crouched down to pick up a photo. It was a family picture. Victor, Arya, and her mother. Daniel gently set it on the table. "Looks like this one matters." Arya's expression flickered for a moment. "They keep putting it everywhere," she muttered. Daniel sat on the floor, across from her like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Sometimes people keep photos around so they don't forget the good parts." She crossed her arms. "I'm not sad." Daniel nodded calmly. "Okay." She blinked, confused. Most adults tried to argue. This one, didn't single quotes, T. After a moment, she asked, "Who are you?" "Daniel. Are you another nanny?" "Nope. I fix broken stuff." She looked around at the shattered frames. Then you're busy. Daniel chuckled. Yeah, looks like it. For the first time in months, Arya almost smiled. Downstairs, Victor Hale walked into the hallway and stopped. His daughter was sitting on the floor with a maintenance worker, and she wasn't yelling. She wasn't destroying anything, she was talking. Victor quietly watched from the corner. So your job is boring, Arya said. Double quotes, sometimes. Then why do you do it? Daniel thought for a moment. Because someone has to keep things working. She tilted her head. Even people. Daniel smiled slightly. Especially people. Arya was quiet after that. Victor stepped forward. What is going on here? Arya, immediately, TENSED. The wall came back. Daniel stood up. Sorry, sir. Heating system should be fixed in about 10 minutes. Victor looked between them. Did she cause trouble? Daniel glanced at the broken frames. Looks like gravity did. Arya stared at him in shock. Victor raised an eyebrow. No one had ever covered for her before. Victor said slowly, my office. Now, Daniel nodded and followed him. Inside the office, Victor closed the door. How did you do that? Daniel blinked. Do what? My daughter hasn't spoken calmly to a stranger in 2 years. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't do anything special. Victor stared. Everyone else fails. Daniel shrugged. Maybe everyone else is trying too hard. Victor leaned forward, explained. Daniel hesitated. Sir, kids know when people treat them like problems. Victor didn't respond. Daniel continued. Carefully. Sometimes they just want someone to treat them like a person. There was a long silence. Then, Victor said something unexpected. How much do you make here? Daniel gave the number. Victor nodded slowly. I'll triple it. Daniel blinked. Sir, I want you to work here. Daniel looked confused. I fix elevators. Victor replied calmly. Now you'll fix something more important. Daniel glanced toward the hallway where Arya had been sitting. You want me to babysit? Victor almost smiled for the first time that week. Apparently you're the only person she hasn't fired. Daniel hesitated. His mind immediately went to Leo, his son. Victor noticed, your child can live here, too. Daniel was stunned. Sir, that's not necessary. It is if you're accepting the job. Daniel looked around the massive office. This kind of opportunity could change everything for his son, but he asked one question. First, what does Arya want? Victor was silent for a moment. No one has asked her. Then they walked back into the hallway. Arya was sitting on the staircase. Daniel crouched slightly. Hey boss, she frowned. I'm not your boss. Could have fooled me. Victor crossed his arms. Arya would you like Daniel to stay and work here? She looked suspicious. Why? Daniel answered honestly. Your dad thinks I'm good at fixing chaos. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she shrugged. Fine. Victor blinked. That was the fastest agreement he'd ever seen from her. Daniel smiled. Guess I start tomorrow. Arya stood up. You better. You still owe me a story. A story about something you fixed. Daniel laughed. Over the next few weeks, something strange began happening inside the Hale mansion. Arya stopped breaking things. She started asking questions. Daniel didn't lecture her, didn't treat her like fragile glass either. Sometimes they fixed random things together. Sometimes they built small projects in the garage. Sometimes they just talked, and Leo quickly became her first real friend. One evening, Victor stood in the hallway again watching them. Arya and Leo were racing toy cars across the marble floor. Daniel was pretending to be the referee. The mansion sounded alive again. Victor quietly asked Daniel, what did you actually do? Daniel thought for a moment. Nothing impossible. Victor waited. Daniel looked toward the kids. I just showed up. Months later, during a massive corporate gala at the mansion, investors, celebrities, and executives filled the building. Victor stood on stage giving a speech about success, innovation, and the future. But halfway through, he stopped, because he saw something across the room. Arya laughing. Daniel standing nearby. Leo beside her. Victor paused. Then, he said something no one expected. People think building companies is the hardest thing in the world. The audience listened. Victor continued. It isn't. Looked directly at Daniel. The hardest thing is building a family again after it breaks. The room was silent. Victor raised his glass slightly. Thankfully, someone here knew how to fix what money couldn't. Arya rolled her eyes dramatically. Dad, you're embarrassing me. The room burst into laughter, and Daniel just smiled. Because sometimes the impossible thing isn't magic. Sometimes it's patience, sometimes it's kindness, and sometimes it's just one person who refuses to give up on a child everyone else already did. And that single dad ended up doing the one thing a billionaire never could. He made a lonely little girl feel like she wasn't alone anymore. And in the end, that changed everything.